cigarette but dropped on the floor. The grass scatters in an instant as if it were afraid. Jack feels so strange. He excavation of the ground with a pickaxe. Surprised to find the land is made of Play-Doh. Looking again overhead, the clouds are incredibly neat and tidy. The sun is also so unnatural. Jack sets up a ladder and prepares to climb up to have a look. Just the moment he climbed to the roof, the scene in front of him stunned him. Ahead of us a vast expanse of houses neatly lined up. Jack felt an indescribable sense of eerie horror. He dared not stay here any longer. Pulling his girlfriend heading outside, they got in the car and prepared to leave the area. But Ellie drove around several times. No matter how she drive, they can't get out. Jack thought it was Ellie who had gotten lost, so he got in the driver's seat looking for a way out. The car keeps moving through the villa area, from daytime driving to nighttime. Eventually the car ran out of fuel. They didn't make it out either. By now the two were tired and hungry, and only one house in the dark villa area has a light on. They got out of the car and tried to go inside to find food, only to find out that this is the same Villa 9 they went into before. Although a little scared, but they decided to stay the night anyway. Jack opened the fridge. Inside is a plate of strawberries and a bottle of a drink. Jack grabbed a strawberry and stuffed it into his mouth, and yet the strawberries had no flavor. Ellie also tries a bite. This feels like eating toilet paper. After eating they are ready for bed. The deadly silence kept the two of them awake for a long time. The next day they were up just as the sun was rising. Jack thought of a great way to get out. They keep going in one direction. In this way there is always the end of the road. They don't know how many villas they have walked through. Walk until dark. Jack has no more strength to walk. At that moment Ellie noticed a light in front of they. Jack stood up and hurried to follow. But when they went inside they were dumbfounded. Wasn't this the same place they had stayed last night? Ellie saw a box sitting by the door. Inside are some food and household items. Jack tore off the paper shell and lit the room with a lighter. He wanted to see what would happen if the place burned down. As they watched, they fell asleep. However, by the next day, once again a box appears before them. Ally came forward and opened the box. Surprisingly, inside the box was a baby. The box reads, "You can leave here as soon as you raise your grown child." Ellie slowly picks up the baby. It's a cute baby boy. LT was at this point that Jack noticed the villa. They watched it burn down last night, and now it's as if nothing has happened. Now they have no way to get out. Can only raise the child as required. However, this child is as strange as this place. Grew into a boy in just 5 days. When the boy is hungry, he kept screaming. He won't stop until the food and utensils are ready. When he's got nothing better to do, the boy also would mimic the conversation between the two.
Quindi è colpa mia! Anche questo è colpa mia, Tom! Mi dispiace, Gemma, è che questo posto mi fa diventare matto! Il cibo che ci danno qui mi fa venire la nausea.
The boy mimicked the exact same voice as the two people, though they are afraid. But in order to be free, they had to overcome their fear. Jack threw his cigarette on the ground, only to find that the grass scatters in an instant as if it were afraid. The excavation of the ground with a pickaxe. Surprised to find the land is made of Play-Doh. This one discovery makes Jack have a new idea. He got his tools out of the car, and the two of them just started digging down. The little boy watched it all. He didn't stop them or help them. After that, Jack woke up every day and started digging, and he didn't go back to bed until nightfall. Time passes day by day, and the pit is getting deeper and deeper. Jake doesn't even go back to sleep. When he got sleepy, he would lie down in the pit for a while. When he woke up, he kept digging. Ellie took care of the weird child every day. On this day, Ellie was playing a game with the kid. She had the idea of having the kid imitate someone they'd never seen before. It's a sight that scares the shit out of Ellie. 10 more days passed. The boy had grown, and he looks exactly like the salesman who brought them here. Ellie is falling apart, and Jack was still digging day and night. Suddenly, Jack seems to have dug something out. This is the highest level of OCD. David never steps on a seam when he walks. He carry a big bag with me every day to deal with the road that can't be crossed. Not only that, he's also a symmetry guy. Pushing the glasses must be done once with the right or left hand. Wristwatch, one for each hand. But there are stranger people than him. The second person to appear. Ellie, she's a compulsive checker. She always closes all the lids before she leaves the house every time. As soon as she gets into the lift, she starts checking if she has her keys. Before she gets too far, she starts worrying if the lights are off in the house. She can't help but go back and check again. She got on the bus with great difficulty. Ellie heard a call from someone who said there'd been a lot of thieves. Then she remembered that she'd forgotten to close her window. Thus she got more and more worried. But if she didn't go back to check on, she'll be restless all day. Every day she went back and forth like this. The day passed quickly. In comparison, Jack, who comes in at number 3, is a bit of an overachiever. He has a compulsion to curse. He'll swear at anyone, anytime, any place, no matter who he meets. He always curses, and the more nervous he gets, the worse he gets. In order to minimize contact with others, he can only raise birds at home, but all the birds he sold were eventually returned, because the parrots he raised only cursed. The fourth person to appear is Lucy. Her problem is simple. She loves to be clean. She carries disinfectant wipes with her every day. Whatever she touches, she wipes it first. In general, she washes her hands at least 500 times a day. If she accidentally touches her face, that's a problem. She must wash her face immediately. If someone touches touches her hair, she has to wash her hair immediately. Wherever she touches it, she has to wash it. If she washes her hands once, she needs 600 milliliters of water, 1,000 times a day. Patient number 4, Lucy, uses 282 tons of water a year. Patient number 3, Jack, swears 7 times every 5 minutes, cursing 84 times an hour, cursing 2,016 times a day. That's 735,840 times a year. He's been sick for 49 years. In total, he cursed 36056160 times. I didn't calculate these figures. Rather, it's calculated by Tom at number 5. He's hypersensitive to numbers. He suffers from a severe compulsion to count everything around him. He has to count everything. As a taxi driver, he can't help but count the number of cars when he's driving. He counts the number of cars that overtake him. When he goes upstairs, he counts how many steps there are. How long does it take? How long does each step take on average? Whenever a number came up, he'll just keep calculation it. But these OCD patients, they're all here today to see the same psychiatrist for counseling. But for some reason, the doctor never showed up. They're all getting tired of waiting. At this moment, the assistant pushed in the door and said, Dr. Luo's flight was delayed. This is definitely stirring up a hornet's nest. These people's obsessive-compulsive disorder is getting worse. However, there was another girl at the scene, sitting quietly by the side. She didn't say a word for half a day. She doesn't look like she's obsessive-compulsive, but the result... A lamp falls from the sky. Jack picked up and looked. It says 18 Hill Street. Jack looked confused. There are no tall buildings in the town. Where did this lamp come from? Jack didn't think much of it. Driving to work, soon the news came over the radio. It said the light was a part that had fallen from the plane. At this point, the radio seemed to be malfunctioning. It kept switching channels. Jack did his best trick. A few kicks and it's fixed. But the radio seems to have switched to a certain channel. But the next moment, he realized that his every move was being broadcast on the radio.
Okay, he's making his turn onto Lancaster Square. Something's wrong. Change frequencies.
It was at this moment that Jack finally realized the problem. In order to verify his thoughts, he began to change his itinerary, observing everyone around him. Soon, he realized that these people seemed to be the same people he saw every day. An old man drinking coffee, a husband and wife having a conversation. He even found a man policing him. Jack didn't go to work as he had planned. Instead, he ran into a bank. The manager saw him and instantly became nervous. Jack walked straight to the lift, but the people in the lift weren't waiting for him. At that moment, the manager came over and said, "You needed a reservation to get up." Jack made an excuse and was ready to get on the lift. Instead, the lift turned into a break room for the group. Jack was stunned. The manager saw this and hurriedly kicked him out. Jack found a friend he had grown up with. Says he's caught up in a conspiracy. Jack told he everything that had happened today. However, his friend said that he was too tired from work and had hallucinated, and told him to go home and get some rest. When he got home, his mother and wife could see that he was restless, so they took out a photo album to reminisce with him. But in the next moment, Jack discovered a big secret. He used a magnifying glass to look through his wedding photos. He found his wife's fingers in the sign of the cross. This means that his wife's wedding vows are completely false. So he approached his wife, wanted to take her on a trip together, but his wife panicked and said she had an operation to do. Looking at her uncharacteristic behavior, Jack is even more certain of his thoughts.
I'll cross my fingers for you.
Seeing his wife go to work, Jack rushed to follow her on his bike, but as soon as he arrived at the hospital, he was stopped by a strange doctor.
Yes, I'm looking for my wife, Nurse Burbank. It's very important.
You know what, I'm afraid that's not possible. She's in pre-op.
Okay, fine. Can you pass along a message?
I'll try.
Can you tell her I have to go to Fiji, and then I'll call her when I get there?
When you get to Fiji?
You got it.
Fine, I will, I'll tell her.
After successfully tricking him, Jack turned around and rushed in. But in the next second, the patients and staff in the hospital were very cooperative and began to block Jack. Having managed to shake off the crowds, he finally made his way to the operating theater where his wife was. Seeing these doctors who were only performing, Jack was stunned. It turned out that even his wife's identity as a doctor was a fake. Leaving the hospital, Jack makes a decision. He's off to Fiji to find his first love, Ellie. He used a magnifying glass to look through his wedding photos. He found his wife's fingers in the sign of the cross. This means that his wife's wedding vows are completely false. So he approached his wife, wanted to take her on a trip together, but his wife panicked and said she had an operation to do. Looking at her uncharacteristic behavior, Jack is even more certain of his thoughts.
I'll cross my fingers for you.
Seeing his wife go to work, Jack rushed to follow her on his bike, but as soon as he arrived at the hospital, he was stopped by a strange doctor.
Yes, I'm looking for my wife, Nurse Burbank. It's very important.
You know what, I'm afraid that's not possible. She's in pre-op.
Okay, fine. Can you pass along a message?
I'll try.
Can you tell her I have to go to Fiji, and then I'll call her when I get there?
When you get to Fiji?
You got it.
Fine, I will, I'll tell her.
After successfully tricking him, Jack turned around and rushed in. But in the next second, the patients and staff in the hospital were very cooperative and began to block Jack. Having managed to shake off the crowds, he finally made his way to the operating theater where his wife was. Seeing these doctors who were only performing, Jack was stunned. It turned out that even his wife's identity as a doctor was a fake. Leaving the hospital, Jack makes a decision. He's off to Fiji to find his first love, Ellie. However, the travel agent told him the soonest could get a ticket was a month later. Jack had no choice but to choose other means of transport. But after he managed to get a bus ticket, the bus also coincidentally broke down. So Jack soon realized that there is a force that keeps stopping itself from leaving. Returning home, Jack called his wife to the car and instructs her to look in the rear view mirror.
In just a moment, we will see a lady on a red bike, followed by a man with flowers, and a Volkswagen Beetle with a dented fender. Lady. Flowers.
This is silly.
There it is! There it is! There's the dented Beetle! Yes!
Looking at his wife still playing dumb, Jack said he had watched them many times. These people keep spinning in place. After saying that he stepped on the gas, immediately ready to drive to Fiji. Seeing the traffic jam on the otherwise clear road, Jack didn't believe it. He put the car in reverse. After turning around and around the roundabout, he pulled back onto the road he had just driven on. Sure enough, the road that had just been blocked was clear. Then they went to the Cross Harbor Bridge, but Jack was afraid to drive across because when he was a boy, his father took him out to sea, and there was a storm. His father died that day, and he was left with a shadow, a fear of the sea. In order to escape this conspiracy, he decided to take a gamble. He put his wife's hands on the steering wheel. He closed his eyes and stepped on the accelerator. This made his wife break out in a cold sweat. Luckily, they made it to the other side, but there are still obstacles ahead. The sign says there's a forest fire ahead, but Jack didn't believe it. He pressed the accelerator and went for it, and it's just as he expected. Just when Jack thought he was about to escape from this fake world, there was an accident ahead. A policeman tells him that there is a nuclear leak ahead, and advises the two men to leave the area.
Thank you for your help. You're welcome, Chairman.
Hearing the stranger call out his name, Jack immediately realizes that this is still a scam. Jack rushes into the forest against all odds. Just wish he could escape from this world of lies, but with his strength alone, can't break free from fate at all. Back home, Jack becomes silent. He saw through the whole charade, but there was no way to unravel the lie. What was even more unacceptable to him was that the wife even advertised at this time.
What the hell are you talking about?
Who are you talking to?
The wife was seen through. She couldn't pretend any longer. She grabbed a kitchen knife and tried to defend herself. In desperation, Jack has to subdue her.
Do something! What'd you say?
Just as Jack is trying to get to the bottom of it, Tom, his best friend, finds him with a beer. The two men then went to their usual haunt. Listening to all that had happened to Jack recently, Tom pretended to be concerned and said, no matter what happened, he would stand by Jack, and he would trust him without reservation. Little did Jack know at this point that his friend's every word was a script written by the director, and in order to make the plot even more dramatic, the director even brought Jack's father back to life in situ.
I found him for you, Truman. Sure, he's got quite a story to tell.
Unaware, Jack slowly walks towards his father, naively believing that it was divine providence. Meanwhile, the director arranges close-ups, while the accompanying music builds up. Touching reunion images brought tears to the eyes of viewers in front of the television. The reality show's ratings reached a new high. However, just when everyone thought Jack's life was back on track, he suddenly disappears from the camera out of nowhere. The director looked at the sleeping Jack in the camera, suddenly had a bad feeling. He asked the crew to call up last night's video, and he found something unusual in it. In order to verify his suspicions, he hurriedly arranged for Tom to visit Jack, only to find a toy under the covers. The director was still naive enough to think Jack was just hiding, but when Tom found a tunnel that appeared out of nowhere, the director realized that Jack had already escaped. He had no choice but to stop the 30-year-old reality show. This left the audience in front of the camera confused. Immediately after, the director sent all the actors to launch a carpet search in Taoyuan Island. Even the moon in the sky was transformed into a searchlight to help in the search. But even so, they couldn't find Jack's whereabouts. Considering that it might be a problem with the light, the director ignored his men's advice. He raised the sun ahead of schedule. The entire island of Taoyuan instantly entered daylight. Finally, after much searching, they saw the figure of Jack in the sea, but everyone was very curious. How did Jack overcome his fear of water? With no time to think, the director hurriedly resumed the live broadcast. All the viewers were very excited. They even made bets on whether Jack could escape. At this moment, Jack is holding the pieced together photo. His mind was filled with memories of his first love, Ellie. Seeing this scene, Ellie before the TV was touched beyond words. The boat had been traveling on the sea for an hour. Suddenly the boat seems to have hit something. Jack rushes over and realizes it's actually a backdrop made of wooden planks. He followed the edge of it northwards. A staircase appeared in front of him. Jack walked slowly up it and opened the door. At that moment, a voice suddenly came from behind him. him. It was the director calling out to him. It turns out that from the moment he was born, he was watched by the whole world, and everything he did was arranged by the director. Everyone in this city is an actor, and this city is a huge studio. The director told the truth. He wanted Jack to stay. For him, everything outside is unknown, and here, he can be watched by billions of people, and a carefree life. The man listened and bowed deeply to the camera. Then he turned around and left the place in style. The audience has watched the man for more than 30 years. At this moment, they are not sorry. They were celebrating Jack, celebrating his bravery, celebrating his freedom, and in the end, he lived happily ever after with his first love. Take away the sheets, spread the woman's legs, then lift up him. It wasn't until early the next morning he struggled to sleep. When he arrived at his employer's house, the employer's chest was covered in sweat. When she saw that it was her own carer, Ellie turned her head away in anger.
J'étais malade.
Au point de ne pouvoir téléphoner? C'était quoi?
There's a strange requirement in the prison. All inmates are forbidden to wear shoes, and all the guards are wearing thick, high-temperature anti-electricity shoes. If the inmates don't comply, the guards would activate the electric shock mode on the floor. This kind of punishment doesn't cause injury, but it does leave a psychological impact. It makes the management of a prison of nearly 3,000 inmates with only 35 guards. A lot of innocent people have been arbitrarily convicted, taken here to work horrific 12-hour shifts. These brutal working hours have led many prisoners to jump straight down into the heat and pressure of the curfew area to free themselves. But Jack wasn't prepared to sit still. Outside of work, he would always keep an eye on what was going on outside the workshop. After the prison guards have done their rounds, Jack asked for a minute to use the bathroom. Into the small cubicle of less than 2 square meters, he pried open the broken fender. He kept wearing out the water pipes used to flush the toilets with stolen parts. He looking forward to sawing through it one day. A new man will soon replace the one who died last night. He hurriedly restored the scene to its original state. Run out of the toilet. Get into the prescribed position. The two men deliberately stood by the lift to observe, and noticed that the guards escorting the newcomers were not wearing electric shock resistant shoes. The newcomers weren't electrocuted when they touched the railing, which means the lift wasn't electrified. If they cut the lift off while escorting a newcomer and grab the weapons from the guards' belts, they'll have a chance to escape. But Jack had one more question. All he knew was that there weren't a lot of guards, but he didn't know the exact number of security guards on each floor. At the end of the shift, the guy in the workshop who knows sign language has a panicked look on his face. The inmates in the opposite workshop sent a message. It seems that something happened on the second floor. Suddenly, there was less and less oxygen in the shift area. The old man was already having trouble breathing. Soon all the floors lost power. After a few seconds, it's back to normal. Their power was temporarily transferred to the second floor. Some people think everyone on the second floor was electrocuted and died instantly. The team leader quickly interrupts those who are disturbing the army. It takes weeks for word to travel from floor to floor. You can't just speculate without evidence. Although the team leader had the slightest doubt in his mind, but he wants to wait for his release at the end of his sentence. From his daily observations, Jack realized that the team leader wasn't a bad guy. He seized the opportunity to shake him directly in the dormitory area conspiracy. Ask him if he's ever thought of escaping. Although the team leader also want to escape from here, but he preferred to wait for the end of his sentence. The next morning, everyone was exchanging messages. It seems someone confirmed what happened yesterday. Everyone on the second floor was electrocuted and died instantly. 2 whole shifts, a total of 100 lives. The team leader wants to know the source of the information. It turns out that a maintenance team was repairing equipment at the time. They just happened to see someone causing trouble on the second floor. Just then, the loudspeaker ordered the prisoners to get into the prescribed position. They weren't allowed to communicate with each other. On this day, an old prisoner who had been tortured with electric shocks for a long time couldn't take it anymore. The doctor who was supposed to save his life gave him a shot of euthanasia. He sent him straight to heaven, knowing that the prisoner will be released from prison tomorrow. But the doctor said he was trying to help him.
A man who was just released on 4 ended up back on 2 the next day. Word got out on the floor and then they killed them all. No one's getting out, are they? Not now.
The team leader broke down when he heard the news. He urged Jack to return to his cell, but Jack knew, after the death of a prisoner, a new prisoner will be added to the prison tomorrow. So tomorrow is the best time to escape, and Jack had a plan to break out. A man and a woman are sunbathing on the beach. Suddenly the woman noticed that not far away, an unknown liquid is pouring down. Curious, Ellie walks over. She reaches out to catch the flowing liquid. Looking at the liquid in her hand, it looked like she had seen it before. Ellie hurriedly called out for Jack.
What's the matter?
I don't know. It looks like honey.
The man who trotted over took it in his hand and tasted it,
It is honey.
and found that it was really honey.
You ever visit a beehive?
The ecstatic man hurriedly climbed up the rock wall. The two men entered the cave and found that there were other places inside. It wasn't long before they found a huge beehive. A hive that size means giant bees. The two men realized that they shouldn't stay here for long. They went back the way they came, ready to leave. However, just as they reached the entrance of the cave, suddenly there was a buzzing sound not far away. Realizing that it was bad, the two rushed back into the cave, and then something terrible happened. A bee bigger than a cow flew back. The two men were so frightened that they fell to the ground. Faced with such a huge bee, they didn't dare to delay. Get up quickly and go back back to the cave. However, the terrible bees did not want to let they go. It searched everywhere for the two men. The moment of truth. Jack pulled Ellie hastily into a hive lattice off to the side. The dreaded giant wasp was right behind them. Eltis soon found the two hiding in the lattice. Faced with such a huge creature, the man grabbed a stick to protect himself, but the giant wasp didn't care about the Jack's attack. It keeps spitting out mucus from its mouth. Seal up the honeycomb bit by bit. The two men could only watch. The honeycomb is being sealed bit by bit. But what's even more frightening is that more and more giant wasps are coming back. At this rate, the two of them will die here. At this critical moment, Jack had an idea. He told Ellie to gather the dead leaves around her. They raised a fire by the hive. As the flames grew bigger and bigger, soon the skin of the hive melted. When the giant wasps were not looking, the two of them eventually managed to sneak out from behind. A drone stops in front of a man. The drone said he was under arrest. It then pops out a pair of handcuffs and throws them at Jack. Jack said he hadn't done anything, but the drone doesn't even listen to his explanation. It said that if the suspect resisted arrest, it will take immediate coercive action. Jack had to obediently put on the handcuffs, following the drone to the prison. The prison is also unguarded. He puts his personal belongings in a box. The conveyor belt brings in a prison uniform. Jack gets changed, following the AI's instructions. He enters cell. The door to the cell is quickly closed. The big screen started to introduce the prison service. Jack didn't have the heart to hear it, just trying to figure out why he got caught in here. Several lawyers' messages popped up on the screen. Jack randomly selected a highly rated. What he didn't expect was the £10,000 it would cost to hire a lawyer. Jack simply can't afford this. He opted for a free public defender. After computer calculations, he has an 89% chance of being found guilty. The sentence is 45 to 47 years. Jack wants to know what crime he has committed, but the AI advised him to confess as soon as possible. That would take 5 to 7 years off his sentence.
Plead guilty to what?
Are you sure you want to plead guilty? Please repeat the words. Plead guilty.
Jack was near frantic. He obviously didn't do anything. It seems that everything the AI does is leading him to confess his guilt of his own accord. Jack asks what crime he is accused of, but the AI only told him he would be in court in 90 days. Jack asked to speak to a real person.
To a human being.
Would you like to place a call?
Yes!
Who would you like to call?
He said to call the local police station. A number of terms popped up on the screen for him to sign. Jack agreed without even looking at it. The call was quickly answered, but it was still the AI who answered the phone. Says to connect to human representative. Need to wait. Jack waited for hours. He woke up to a beep. The phone was cut off by the AI. The screen showed that his account was out of money. It turns out the call just now was chargeable. £3 per minute. Jack said this was a ridiculous charge, but the AI pulled up the terms just now. There is indeed a £3 a minute clause. Jack is furious. He kept complaining in his cell, but the AI simply ignored him. When he's tired of cursing, he lies down on the bed to rest. The AI asked him if he wanted to turn off the lights. Of course, he also has to pay for the lights to be turned off. And just like that, Jack was locked up. The next day, the computer introduced him to the prison services, said he also could work in prison, and will earn his wages through his labor. Jack chose to do a craft. A box is fed through the window opening. He started learning to knit a jumper by following the instructions. He had plenty of time to send the knitted product out, and the money in his account went up a few cents. This gave Jack hope again.